Well, hello, my Freedom Writer family. I am as giddy as a schoolgirl right now, which is apropos because my guest and I have been indoors for the better part of 4 months. But what I'm so excited about is this is a Freedom Forum that concludes our unbelievable 12-week thematic units looking at issues that affected us during this pandemic. I think it's apropos that our theme this week is transformation because our guest is a storyteller. He's a storyteller on your television, on your movie screen, and on the Broadway stages. He's also a storyteller as an author. But my favorite part of his storytelling is standing in a classroom in front of students. He is also a teacher, not just any teacher, but a high school English teacher to boot. So I've been bragging to everyone I know who I know is joining us from near and wide. So without further ado, it is such an honor and it's so humbling to introduce the esteemed Tony Danza. Hey, Tony.
Hello. Erin, that's the most beautiful introduction I've ever received.
Well, you are the most beautiful man I've ever seen. And before we begin, some of the teachers are just beyond giddy. So I have to show you one thing that came in the mail. It is a picture of you, if everybody can see that.
Yes. Yeah.
If you are Friends aficionados, Elton John had a song called Hold Me Closer, Tiny Dancer. And the character Phoebe on Friends thought it was Hold Me Closer, Tony Danza. So I have a Hold Me Closer, Tony Danza shirt.
Yes. Yes.
So that is our good luck charm for today.
And that's by the way, that's a 40-some-odd-year picture, 40-some-odd-year-old picture.
Oh, it holds. Wait till you see the questions. That is the image emblazoned in some folks' minds. I want to also say to all of our folks that are watching, I love to be Santa in the summer and give away books. Traditionally, we give away our book. But today, we are giving away copies of the New York Times best-selling book by Tony Danza. And it is aptly entitled, I'd Like to Apologize to Every Teacher I've Ever Had. I will tell you, I have given this book to just about everyone I know. You can't put it down. You could read it in one setting. It is spectacular. So for all the folks that are asking questions today, this is the present you're going to receive from our shared publishing house, Penguin Random House. And I got a box full of books to give away. So I can't wait for them to get a copy of this, Tony. But before I begin, I want to read something from a teacher. I know she's watching with bated breath. That photo of you was her girlhood crush. And what makes me so excited about her, it's more of a commentary than a question. Kathy Connolly, she's our little Farrah Fawcett, and she's a sweet little Appalachian girl living in Kentucky. And this sweet little Appalachian girl teaches her heart out. And she has lost close to 40 students as an English teacher to the opioid addiction that ran rapid in her community. And she just loves on her babies. And so throughout this pandemic, she's been on the brink. A lot of her kids have gone to really dark places. A lot of her kids are really hurting. So knowing that, I'm going to get emotional, but knowing that Tony Danza was the light at the end of this tunnel kept her going. So this is something she wrote directly for you, Tony. This is Kathy Connolly in Kentucky. She said, Mr. Danza, thank you so much in caps for agreeing to be a part of our Freedom Writer experience. I have followed your career for years, and you've always been an inspiration to me. You and all of your characters were always made me smile, always made me calm down, and always were able to help me grow. That means a lot to a little kid growing up in the Appalachia area. So, sir, you get a sir. So, sir, you have no idea what you have in store for this Freedom Writer group of awesomeness. I'm sure we will be asking you, who's the boss? I can't wait. So maybe we start there. What would you tell this beautiful girl in Appalachia who's lost nearly 40 students to the opioid addiction?
I don't think there are any words that can suffice. But I mean, it's hard enough to be a teacher when the kids are there. I mean, I can't even imagine what it must be like to go through this. And what's sad about this is that it, I mean, I can't help myself, Aaron. I'm just stuck on this thing that's happened to this country that seems to be the overriding theme of the country is greed. And the opioid epidemic turns out to be another example of that, where these companies shipped millions of pills to a pharmacy in a town of 2,000 people. So, I mean, it's just another example of you talk about a transformation. I think we really need a transformation in the country to start remembering who we are. Obviously, what's been going on the last month or so, on top of the pandemic. I mean, it's just a really tough. I mean, somebody's trying to tell us something. It seems to me.
You gotta listen. For our guests that are joining us,
I wish. By the way, just to answer your question, though, I really, it's above my pay grade to have. I just would say, I wish I could. I wish I could hug Mrs. Connolly.
Oh,
Connolly,
believe me, she's doing the happy dance right now. My girl is going crazy in Kentucky. For our guests who are just joining us, as you know, I'm in Los Angeles. We're still kind of coming out of this pandemic. But Tony's been in the apex in New York City, the heart of this explosion in America. And so for someone that has been literally indoors for 4 months, Tony, what's that been like? You have this beautiful, vibrant city. You've performed on Broadway many a times. Broadway is shut. Times Square is shut. What is that like to be in New York when it was hit the hardest?
I love New York City. I'm born in Brooklyn, and I came back to New York 11 years ago after a long time in California, and I really, really love the city. I work for the Police Athletic League here in the city with an acting program that's really been really successful, and we get kids, we give kids opportunities, and it's been really thrilling to see. We got over 20 of them now in college from the program.
Oh, it's amazing.
So really, it's been wonderful. But the city, it's just been so heartbreaking to see it the way it is. Now, having said that, the air is the cleanest you've ever seen it. I had to go to First Avenue and 38th Street from 67th Street and Columbus Avenue, and it took 8 minutes like hair. I mean, so, there were some things that you couldn't help but enjoy. I mean, I from my apartment, I can see a new bridge that I never saw before because the air is cleaner. It's, but for instance, on Columbus Avenue, we have a couple of restaurants that will not open. Places that have been there for over 25 years will not come back. And that is indicative and emblematic of what's been happening all over the city. It's just sad. It's just sad. By the way, you have to really, really give so much credit to the frontline people in the city, the hospital workers, the people that are still in the grocery stores, the cab drivers. The people have really kept us all alive. It's just been unbelievable. And I have a doctor friend here who has been an emergency room doctor and has been, he's just submerged in this. And he says it's like nothing you've ever seen. He's never seen anything like it, and it never really got as bad as it almost looked like it was going to. So, and I'm a little dubious about this, opening up. I really am. It just, it just seems like there's a little bit of magical thinking going on, and we're just okay. It's over. I heard Mike Pence say it's just a question of testing. And the president said, if we stop testing, there won't be any more cases. Well, that doesn't really make any sense. But onward. I mean, I think, we really can't outweight this virus. We have to take the precautions we do. And the people that are vulnerable have to isolate themselves.
One of my favorite memories of just spending time with you over the years is you are always so early. Your teachers are early by nature, but I love that if we were going to meet at noon, you'd be there at 11:45. So I love your punctuality. That as a teacher, that I love that, and I think all the teachers on this call will appreciate that. You always show up with a New York Times in your hand. You're a voracious reader. And 99% of the time, you took the subway. And you're so proud of your subway card. And I love that about you. And you're impervious to the fact that people are taking your photos and pointing. You're just a man of the people.
Well, I used to do a bit in my act. And it's so interesting now. I don't know what I'm going to do with this bit. Because the bit was, one of the things I love about New York is the brush. You know what the brush is? The brush is when in New York you're walking down the street one way and another guy's walking right at you, walking towards you. There's no way you can avoid a collision.
Yeah.
And nobody's giving any way. Nobody's giving any ground. But then at the last minute, you both just move your shoulder and you brush against each other as you go by. And you get it all over the city. You get it in the subway. You get it on the street. Sometimes you get it from behind. But nobody seemed to mind. And now we don't brush anymore. And believe me, it was one thing to get people to make eye contact in New York. I once said it was so cold people were making eye contact in New York City. But I mean, now it's very hard to get people. They're wearing masks, and they're doing what I call the Corona swerve.
Ooh.
See, you come to somebody now, instead of brushing against them, you go apart and walk out into the street and make some kind of, it's just, we're all going to have to really come to grips with a new kind of even in New York City, and maybe even more so in New York City, a different kind of way of life.
I think what's been amazing that we've all had to adapt is, as teachers, so many of us and yourself were empaths, so we read a room. And if someone is hurting, we hurt. And if someone is in the process of healing, we heal. And I think in the pandemic, this virtual reality, we don't have the intimacy of a touch. When you want to hug a student, or if you want to see the pain in their eyes. And I think that's one thing a lot of us have really struggled with, is just the tenderness that comes even with the brush on the street. And so do you feel that that's been hard for New Yorkers to not have the ability to just see and touch and feel?
Maybe more so for New Yorkers, because they're so used to that. I, for one, I haven't seen my kids. My kids are all in Los Angeles. My grandkids, I'm going completely. Thank God for FaceTime. I don't know what I would do with that. But and Zoom and Google, whatever we're on.
We've tried them all.
Yeah. Well, but it's just been. New York. New York is it's a social city. That's why you live here, because there's a lot of people. It's so sad to see it empty. It really is, and yet there is a spirit that still lives here and is burgeoning. It's really trying to get out. There's no doubt about it. So, I'm optimistic, as I always am, and you have to be, because the kids deserve your optimism. You know what I mean? It's really hard to, you got to be really careful. Like when I do talk to my kids, I'm so afraid to be in a bad mood, because I don't want to make them think that there is no end to this, because sometimes I really do feel, very desperate. I do feel a bit of despair about this, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, and I've also been trying to counsel my kids and the kids in our program that this is a time to make something happen. Don't look. We still have to live, and when you're living, you should be doing something. So, in some way, part of it is just surviving this thing, but in some way, the great line was that Shakespeare wrote King Lear, Antony and Cleopatra, and one other during the plague while he was stuck home. So I don't expect that, but I do expect to have some kind of, and I've been trying on my own to stay in shape, to do a lot of reading, to explore. I've been playing piano and ukulele and trying to, so that when we look back on this time, these months, and who knows how many more months, that we won't say that was just a wasted part of my life. I don't want it to be like that, and I try to and I try to make the kids feel the same way that we're dealing with. We've been doing virtual classes. It's an acting class because, when you teach a kid how to act, you teach a kid how to act. And so, and we've been really good. I mean, the kids have really, it's really something. And it shows you that how necessary it is because they just keep coming back.
I'm going to invite you, along with the audience. We had an interest, speaking of teaching kids how to act, there was this desperate cry for help. There was an amazing teacher, Mark Urban, in Illinois, on the south side of Chicago, and his students chose the Freedom Rider story to adapt for their senior performance. And they all chose roles from our feature film and also the movie.
Wow.
And Friday, March 13th, that talk about an omen, they did their last dress rehearsal. And because a lot of these kids had been with Mark since their freshman year. This was the year they were going to state. This is the year they were getting their trophy. And I know that you went to school in Iowa, so Illinois is not that far from Iowa. At the end of their rehearsal, there's a booming voice over the loudspeaker that they have 30 minutes to evacuate the school, empty their locker, and school is shut down for the rest of the year. These kids are crestfallen. So this teacher, who's just an amazing speech and drama teacher, writes this harrowing cry for help. And we call him. And he didn't think we would actually read his letter, let alone call him. And we said, how can we help? So for the last couple months, these kids have been practicing their performance on Zoom. And we have been their audience. And we have teachers all over the globe watching them perfect their nuances on Zoom, of all things. So tomorrow night is their watch party, and we're hosting this watch party for them to see themselves for the first time. And what was the most amazing thing, Tony, is I know from being a teacher, as we were responding, it was the teacher from New York, and they were like, oh my God, somebody from New York watched this, or it was the teacher from Pennsylvania. Yeah. So we have all of these states. So if the esteemed Tony Danza did a shout out for them, they might just lose their minds.
I would love to be involved.
It's so cute. Sure. There's a little Miss G. There's a little girl who plays me, as cute as a button.
Well, why not?
And there's of course it's technology. So there's glitches and all that stuff that come with that format of Zoom. But I literally wept inconsolably the entire half-hour performance. I will probably weep inconsolably tomorrow. But I want to start there. When you started teaching, you said there's two things that stayed in my mind that I think will make a lot of teachers feel better. You talked about flop sweat and you talked about tears. And I think for all of us teachers, those extremes, the flop sweat and the tears, we try to hide from our kids. Yeah. But we don't do a very good job. So can you talk about those two emotions, your first day?
Yeah, well, I'd love to. My first day, I really, you keep saying I'm a teacher. I did it for 1 year and I tried to be a teacher. I don't really feel worthy to accept the mantle of teacherdom. I don't know what I could. But anyway, I remember my first day so vividly. I was wearing a blue shirt and a tie. I didn't have a jacket on because my teacher friend of mine told me, don't wear a jacket, it'll kill you. So I had a blue shirt and a tie, and I forgot to wear an undershirt, which was a big mistake. And I was really nervous, and I didn't know really what to do, and so I did what I thought teachers do, is you write your name on the board, and you turned around to the class and introduce yourself.
Ta-da!
And tell them,
Mr. Danza.
This is what we're going to do, and who I am, and so on and so forth. And I really was having trouble just getting through the first line of saying I was their English teacher. I was like, I'm Mr. Danza, and I'm your teacher. And I tried to get it out, and a girl raised her hand, and I was so relieved that someone raised their hand.
I think it was Paige. Was it Paige?
It was Paige, yes, of course. And she said, Mr. Danza, do you wear a T-shirt? And I said, no, why? She said, oh, you should. You're sweating like a pig. She said to me. And it kids all laughed, and and then I said, "You're right," and I sort of, and I, and that was my sweat thing. But I think that thing about never letting them see you sweat, I'm not so sure. I think they like it when they see you sweat. And then the crying one, the biggest cry I cried so much. I cried so much from the beginning of the year, and I'll be honest with you, some of it was self-serving tears, because I cried because I thought I was going to make a fool of myself. I thought I had bitten off much more than I sounded like a great idea at the time. And then I also thought that I had a responsibility, like all teachers do, to these kids' futures. Like, it wasn't going to be like, oh well, you had Tony Danza for your 10th grade English class. We'll do it over. No, it was going to be the only 10th grade English class they were going to get. So I was really, and I had a lot of tears. And the other tears, and the ones that get you, are the tears when they break your heart, when the kids break your heart for whatever reason, whether they're not interested or your lesson plan flops or whatever. But what happened was, the big one was, really the big one, was I had a mentor teacher. I had a teacher, David Cohen, who sat in on most of my classes. And he was really smart and really a great teacher. And what we would do is, after each class, we would have like a postmortem. We would go have we'd sit down he was in the alumni office. I would sit at the desk, at the chair next to his desk, and he would be there, and we would talk about the day. And that particular day, I had walked into the school feeling like $1 million. Like I had the greatest lesson plan I'd ever conceived of. I don't remember even what it was, but I was going to show the world. Today was going to be the day I was going to be the teacher that I hoped to be. And it fell so flat. It just didn't do anything. It was as if all this time I had put in, and it just didn't mean it. And he was sitting there, of course, in that particular class. And I was just crestfallen. I really was. I was crestfallen. And I got out of class, and kids left, and I sat there for a while, and then I had to go down and have the postmortem. So I made my way down to the alumni office. I sat down, and he said to me, "Listen, take it easy." I said, it just didn't work out. Yeah, don't worry about it. He said to me, after we talked for a while, he said to me, "You know what the problem is? The problem is that we're hearing your voice and not the kids' voices." Mm. He says, "You're hearing your voice a lot," and I agreed, because coming from where I came, I thought the teacher stood at the board and lectured. So he said, "But here, the good news is, and this is what teachers I think know, is that tomorrow's another day, and you get another chance to do it again. So, you know what I mean? So get yourself together and be ready for tomorrow." I said, "Yeah, you're right, David. That's 100% right. Thank you. I feel so much better." And then I went to get up. Just went to, he went to me, "You okay, we're fine." And that was going to be it. And I said, "Okay, thanks, I'll talk to you tomorrow." And I went to get up, and my butt got off the chair about 1.5 inches, and he said, he wasn't even looking at me. He was looking down at some papers, and he said, "Did you cry yet?" And I'm telling you, Aaron, I broke down so bad that right now it's making me cry. This is the craziest thing. But I dissolved into tears. I sobbed uncontrollably. And I was so embarrassed that I ran for the door and ran out into the hallway like a jerk, because there were about 100 students and 20 teachers standing out there. And what was really interesting as I ran by them was I noticed the teachers looking at me, and it was as if they were saying, "Now he knows." And it was it was just, talk about a transformation. I realized, that it was this important to me, number one. And number two, that I was now one of the gang, because I had shed tears over a student or over a blown lesson plan, But it's if you don't cry doing this, I just don't think you're doing it, maybe. I mean, I found myself in tears so often. By the way, I'm a crybaby. Paige used to call me that. They used to call me that. You crying, Mr. Danza? It's that time again. You know, they do that stuff to me.
But I'm so glad you're saying this, because part of the Freedom Writer's story is not just being there for students. It's elevating and celebrating teachers. And I think that we're told, don't show your emotions, don't cry till Christmas, don't hug.
And don't cry till Christmas. Don't smile till
don't
Christmas.
Smile till Christmas.
Don't smile till Christmas.
And I think what we found out specifically in this pandemic, as we've been gathering daily, if not weekly, is the humanity, that it is hard and it's humbling and it triggers imposter complex and it triggers our own insecurities.
How about adoption fantasies? How about? I mean, it's you know, I think one of the things that I don't think teachers are trained for, and it is the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. Sure, you have curriculum, you have to get. You got to get it in by a certain time, and you have professional development, and you have all these other things that you have to do, crazy administrators and whatever. And then there's the emotional grind. The thing that happens is, that I found was, let's be honest, the motivated student in a lot of our public schools is no longer the unmotivated student. I mean, it's no longer the exception. So in order to motivate kids, in order to get them to work, sometimes, a lot of times, you have to go out of your way to make them know you care about them. Because a lot of their lives, they don't have anybody who cares about them in that way. And so it's really adults. And so it's really important that and all good teachers care about their kids, of course, but you in order to get them to work, I mean, you hear kids saying, oh, yeah, he don't like me, I'm not going to work, I'm not going to do that. And you think, well, what are you hurting me, kid? You're hurting yourself. But they don't realize that. And so you go out of your way to make sure they know you care. Right? Then you pay the price. This is when it happens, because once they know you care and they do a modicum of work, once you get them they know you care, then they want to tell you about themselves. They want to tell you about their lives. They want to tell you about the things that are happening to them. And so some of the things that you hear are so awful, you have to report them. It's so hard, and over and over and over again. And I talk about adoption fantasies. And I mean, I found myself at times, really, really, thinking, wow, I could do this for this kid, or I could, and wait a minute, take it easy. I could just see myself with 30 or 40 kids now,
But you
living
have
in my apartment in New York.
But what I know, you're humble and get some earmuffs on. What you have done, and I'm gonna take you to task, because you said you're not a teacher. I disagree. Your classroom has changed, but once you left, you didn't leave. You left that school, and for a decade, you go back every year. And I know the pandemic crushed you, because you go back and you do this huge talent competition and raise funds for the arts. And you've taken that passion now to the Police Athletic League with these kids. So you can never say you're not a teacher. Your classroom is just different. You might not be giving grades, but you're still so committed to those Vikings. And you're still so committed to the PAL kids. And I know that when we've talked before, this pandemic has been really hard for you, because you couldn't be that, we're not the sage on the stage, or now the guide on the side, but you're still guiding them. So what's that like when you weren't able to raise funds for the Viking art program? And what's it like when you're not able to gather all the kids from Harlem and the Bronx to be in the PAL program because of the pandemic?
Well, it broke my heart this year that we didn't get to do we do, as you mentioned, this is the 11th annual Students versus Teacher Talent Show. Oh, it's become really a thing, but this year we couldn't do it, and I didn't get to go down for graduation, which is what I normally do. And I've been the graduation speaker for 10 years in a row. The kids are so. And by the way, it's gotten to the point where I'm merging speeches, and it just doesn't make it. And really, what's been tough here in New York City is we really, really had something going here. We started with 12 12 reluctant kids up in Harlem. And they were scary kids, by the way. And I actually said to Brian, my partner, Brian Hills, I said, Brian, what have we done? you know, but we now have over 900 kids in the program. My gosh. And yeah, we really said, and we've started the Cops and Kids Chorus, which is, if you remember the Harlem Boys Choir, the Cops and Kids Chorus. It's the same cadence, and we'll put a bunch of cops together with a bunch of kids, and hopefully we can bridge this divide that unfortunately seems to be widening. But I'm just, you know, it's just been very difficult. We've been doing virtual classes and virtual. We had a town hall meeting the other night, and it was really interesting. I mean, you know, the kids are so thoughtful. Hold on, I'm sorry. Oh, here. The kids are so thoughtful that it blows your mind. You know, I mean, a young man the other day said to me that he was not sure we could ever find a way to make the kids of New York trust the police of New York City, and it just breaks your heart to hear somebody say that. And yet, it's not that hard to understand.
You know, I've met the police chief of New York, and she said you were one of the most valued assets. I mean, in the police department, you're legendary because you're in the trenches with the kids. I mean, you literally are their coach. And there was a saying you said that I will never forget, that you tell your students that it came from your father, I believe. And he said, you can't be interesting until you're interested. So tell the viewers what your father meant about that.
No, it's actually, that's not one of my father's, actually. That actually came to me. My father was, you know, my father was the saying guy. He had a million sayings, you know, a million cliches, but this one was my own.
This is your, okay, so this is still a Danza quote, but it's a different Danza.
By the way, I just realized it a couple of years ago, so it really made a difference. No, but I mean, what I do is, I say this, you know, you can't be interesting until you're interested. It took me a long time to realize that. And if you say that to kids, they really get that. It's, you know, it's so funny about coming up with a little slogan that makes sense, that makes you think about something, and that one has been a real go-to a lot of times with the kids, and you got to be interested in something, otherwise forget about it. You just you're just not. Who cares about you if you're not interested? You got to be interested, and in life, by the way, just be interested in life, because there's a lot to be interested in if you take the time to look at it. It's very difficult, though. You know, one of the things that we try to do here, you know, in the city, one of the things I still worry about, and we've talked about this before, is that it's unlike when we were kids, and I'm a lot older than you, Aaron, but when we were kids, there was so many places where you could see a good role model. It was hard to find a bad role model. And so you knew what you were supposed to do, you knew who you were supposed to be. And I think for a lot of kids today, they have nothing but bad role models. It's very hard for them. It's the opposite. It's very hard for them to find a good role model. And so what we try to do in the acting program is try to give them something else to think about. So instead of the music and whatever, you know, I always say, you know, I worry about the younger generations, because if you remember, we grew up on nothing but love songs. Nothing but love songs. How to have love, needing love, finding love, and look how we turned out. Anyway, so I worry about the kids. So what this thing does is just gives them another perspective. And what's really exciting about it is that you can have the most resistant, the most defensive, the most angry young kid come into the classroom, won't do anything, won't do it. 3 days later, I have to support my ensemble. That's so exciting. So, you know, it really, what it shows is that they're yearning for something. They're yearning for something, and that it's up to us. It's up to us. We cannot expect, you know, if you inundate kids with gunplay violence and anti-heroes who seem to have made it big, you know, with the goal. Well, why wouldn't that be a good model for kids. We can't expect them to choose. If we don't help them, we just think they're going to grow up well adjusted. They need guidance, and so this thing that we've been doing here has been. I mean, it thrills your soul. It really thrills your soul. I got to send you. We made a video. I made when we did our last show last year. We did it, and that was another thing we didn't do this year. We usually do our PAL show. We didn't do it this year because obviously the pandemic. But last year we had the greatest show ever, and I decided to film it. And I hired a guy, and we filmed the whole thing. And so I'm going to make a movie about the making of this show and the rehearsal process and PAL in general and the organization in general. And but while I was at it, since we don't have any fundraising opportunities anymore because most of our fundraising is special events, I made a video out of it. Just a video of, I think it's 3.5 minutes. And it's a compilation of the show from what we did and a little bit of an event. And we sent it out, and I'll send it to you so you'll see it. But we sent it out, and it's been a real hit with people. And so I'm hoping that after this is over, I'm going to take that video to one of these streaming services and try to sell the story of the acting program in New York.
Well, if you send it to me, I will send it to all of our teachers. And
I'm going to send it to you today.
I love that.
I'm really proud of it too. The only thing is that after seeing me today, obviously the coronavirus here in New York it's just having a devastating effect on my hair color. And I when you see the other, you'll see when I show you the video, you'll see you'll see how devastating it is.
Oh, stop. This is a perfect segue. I have the most hilarious question, but there's a sweet story that goes with it. It's actually not a question. It's another one of these statements. And hold on, I'm looking for the photo. This is from one of the most amazing teachers I know. And this is for you, clearly. He said, I for sure knew I was gay when I would watch Taxi's Tony Danza on TV for only that reason, Tony Danza. And I want everyone to think this is Tony Danza back on Taxi.
That's him. That's him. Yeah, that's him.
But this teacher, he's exquisite. I got ordained so that I could officiate his wedding to his husband, Michael. And yesterday was Johnny and Mike's 2nd anniversary. So I got to show you. After I married them, I sent them onto a gondola. This, can you see?
Come this way. I can't see.
Okay.
I can't see.
Okay, there we go. Can you see now?
Oh, there you go.
There,
okay.
There is Johnny and his husband, Mike. So you affirmed for him with that character on Taxi that he you were his first crush. How does that feel?
It's pretty. Well, I feel. It's really. It's. First of all, that. I got lucky. I was a prize fighter in New York. I couldn't fight. I was really lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I'd gotten out of college, supposed to be a teacher, and instead of that, I ended up, boxing, and then somehow ended up in that show. And the guy who wrote that show, who created that show, Jim Brooks, brilliant Jim Brooks, just turned 80 the other day. We had a Zoom thing for him, but I think about that. How that show it might have had an influence on your friend, but what it did for me made all of this possible, and it's just I'm so grateful. I really can't. Every time somebody brings it up to me, I really feel this overwhelming need to spout off about gratitude. I can't help myself. It's just so thrilling. And Banta, he was a good guy. I liked him. You know what Banta was? Banta wasn't. Everybody said Banta was dumb, but he wasn't dumb. He just didn't see any further than the end of his nose. He only. So one of my favorite Banta like characterizations of him is he's sitting at I'm sitting at the table in the garage with Bobby, the actor, and John, who was on the show in the first year. And John is like a hick kind of guy. He's from the backwoods. And he says, my father always said that the greatest lie is a lie to yourself. It's a lie to oneself. And Bobby says, Bobby says, John, George Bernard Shaw said that. And Tony Danza says, hey, John, your father was George Bernard Shaw. So see, that's where his mind went.
That is a great segue to a freedom writer sent me a question, and you actually met him when you spoke to freedom writers and teachers. His name is Narada. And to crystallize Narada in your mind in the feature film, which I know made you a little weepy, the scene where the young boy is reading from his journal about being homeless, that was actually Narada's original story, 24.
I see.
So Narada said that he thinks it's interesting that there is 6 degrees of separation from you and the freedom writers, and that 6th degree is that Danny DeVito, who was on Taxi with you, was the person who discovered our story and was a producer of the Freedom Writers film. So that is the 6 degrees of separation. So Narada wants to know if there's any other 6 degree of separation in the future for us, because I think that they all have read your book and loved it.
Well, I just spoke to Danny the other day, by the way. He's well. I'm happy to report. Listen, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean by what's the next 6th degree of it? I don't know. Are you planning on doing something, another movie?
I don't know. How about we'll be partners in education forever. How's that? We'll be partners in education.
No, I agree with that. Danny's so, that movie. I think about that movie. It's in the book, but there were 2 girls that drove me crazy all year about wanting me to see that movie.
Paige and Tatiana. Was it Paige and Tatiana again?
Yeah, they just made me crazy. You got to see this movie, Mr. Danza. Mr. Danza, you got to see this movie, man. This movie's right up your alley, Mr. Danza. I said, I would say, I don't want to see no weepy teacher movie. Get out of here. I don't want to. So the end of the year happened, and it was that 2 weeks when they don't have finals anymore, and everybody either comes or doesn't, and the seniors don't, and kids come and hang out with you and so on. And I had a bunch of kids in the class, and then these 2 girls came in and said, Mr. Dan, why don't we watch the movie now? I got it right here. I said, all right, fine, let's watch the movie. So they sat right in front of me. I sat at my desk and turned my head to watch the movie on the screen. And they watched me watch the movie. They didn't watch the movie. They were watching what the movie was going to do to me. That's what they were waiting for. And the movie had the appropriate effect. I sobbed. I sobbed in front of them, and that was their crowning achievement. They skipped out of the room. They were so happy that they finally talked me into seeing it, and it had the desired effect.
And for those watching at home, the movie is the Freedom Writers. So I love the visualization of Tatiana and Paige watching you with this big projector of our film. Well,
it wasn't a big projector. It was a classroom projector.
A classroom projector.
Yeah, but it was.
Yeah. But I think that I had the same effect when I read your book. Your book really sucker punched me, because the way in which you write is the way you speak. So it's a page turner, but you were so earnest and you were so self-deprecating. And I think for those of us as teachers, it is our craft. And for you, your craft had been acting and writing and directing and performing. And I think that the love letter that you gave to me and teachers was something I think we all desperately need, because we're, as you know, we're overworked and underpaid.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Please. I mean, just let's talk about what you're expected to do now with the pandemic. If you're a teacher, just totally change how we do it and make it workable and make it effective right away. I mean, it's just amazing what you have to go through. And I just did a podcast the other day. Mr. Connolly, Joe Connolly, a friend of his named Bill Mealy, is a teacher. I think they're down south, and he has a very. I heard the name of the podcast. It's about teaching, but I heard the name of the podcast, and I said, "Oh, I have to do this." It's called Unprofessional Development.
Send me that link too. That's going out to everybody.
Oh, it's so good. So we were talking about, what you're expected to do. I mean, just think about it. You're expected the list of responsibilities are just unbelievable, and I don't know. I mean, and then you'll talk to a teacher and who's been there 35 years and coming back for another year, and he'll say to you, I said, why are you coming back? And he says, because maybe next year I'll get it right. So I mean, I just it is a calling. I just wish that it was more revered, and as it should be. It should be held at a much. I mean, what do we do without teachers? I mean, I just this is again we go back to this thing about should we be? I'm going to write something, Aaron. I know I'm all over the place, but I want to write something. What do you get? What do you get anymore for being an American citizen? There was a time being an American citizen was the greatest privilege in the world. But what do you get anymore? If you really think about it, do you get infrastructure when you're traveling or trying to commute to work? Nah, not really. Do you get health care? Not in the pandemic. No. Do you get education that you need all the way? Like one time it was 12th grade, but now we need 4 more years. Do you get that? No. You got a lot of. You get. Do you get security? No, not really. You don't get that either. And so you go down the list and you say, geez, what happened? What happened? And it's all of a piece, I think, that we've become not citizens anymore. We've become all customers, especially our children. Because, it's all bets are off. You could, I oftentimes make this argument that, there was a time on TV, and this is not that long ago because I was on TV when this was happening. There was a family hour on TV, a family hour where you only could show certain shows. So we really cared about our kids, and so I hate to say it, we never really cared about our teachers, but now we're not even caring about the kids anymore. So it's got me worried, and it just puts more pressure on the teachers to do more and more and more.
That's a really great segue to talk about the craft of teaching, because a lot of the teachers that sent me wonderful questions wanted to know from you specifically, because you are a teacher, and you also teach acting and are an actor. I've seen your movies. I've seen I got to see you on Broadway, which was amazing. So
there was my one-man act too.
I did. I saw your one-man act. I saw your
That's right.
So a lot of the teachers wanted to know, in the world of acting, was there a way that you were able to take method acting or any technical skills as an actor and apply that to being a teacher? And then vice versa, did you take anything you learned from being a teacher and apply that to your future roles as an actor? So what did you steal from both?
Well, let's go first from acting to teaching. Okay, so first of all, teachers are performers. You have to perform. I mean, you got to tell a story up there because that's the only way they learn. So you got to get them interested, and anyway. But so teachers are perform. And actors have to prepare. Teachers have to prepare. Actors have to be stay on task. I mean, all the things. I mean, there are so many similarities to it. But I think the big thing is that I took from being an actor, sometimes to a fault, and that's part of what David said, that we were hearing too much of your voice and not enough of theirs. You have to find a way to make it an ensemble as opposed to a one-man performance. But there is of what you need to be an actor. You need to be it helps to be a teacher because they respond to that. They respond to dynamism. They respond to your excitement level. They respond to your commitment. All the things that you have to have as an actor, they respond to as kids, and much like any audience. You know what I mean? As far as what I took from teaching, I'll be honest with you. I think the thing that really overwhelmed me, or that continues to overwhelm me, is just the amount of work. Just the amount of work. And I mean, I forget about it. Imagine, so you're teaching. You got 150 kids. You got to document everything. You You have certain kids who have IEPs and other kids who don't, so you have to do all of that. You have professional development. Like I said, you usually have a couple of nutty administrators. You have to be social worker, not only the teacher, social worker, parent, best friend. It goes on, and especially because in our schools we are not funding them the way we should. We're not really interested in educating all our kids anymore. I mean, that's how I feel. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems that way to me. I was telling you about an article in yesterday's New York Times about charter schools who applied on top of school funding, school funding and tax-free status and backing from billionaires. They applied for paycheck
protection.
Yes, and $50 million went to charter schools. So if Betsy DeVos tells you that's right, I guess it's right, but I don't think it's right. Because I'm not a big, I'm for good schools. But until charter schools can explain to me how we take care of every kid, I'm going to have a tough time with that model.
You know, you're political because education is political, and I need to.
And I'm sorry.
I know, I love it. I love it.
I'm saying don't. But
no, please do. And I kind of merged a couple questions, and both of those questions about the acting and the teaching came from public school kids. One of them was Carol Ann, who taught me a lot about kids who are on the spectrum. And I think if Carol Ann, as a child, had a teacher, Mr. Danza, it would have been a better school experience for her. So I love that she asked that question. And Renee Bender works in a school system that has the most vulnerable among us. And so I think they were just so intrigued by what you were able to do in a public school with those kids in Philly, those Vikings.
Yeah, I really think it comes from, like with me anyway, it came from not only a real determination to give them the best I could, but I fell in love with them. I just fell in love with them. I fell in love with, I hurt for them when they hurt, and I soared with them when they soared. But it was a journey an emotional journey that's very hard to separate from teaching. It's like, I know you're supposed to go down this thing and get this done, and there's a way and everything else, but it's very hard to not go off track a little bit because you're so emotionally attached to them, and you want the best for them.
The next question is from one of those teachers who, like you, she went rogue. She teaches with kids who are foster kids, and through this pandemic, she's been sharing stories about kids who didn't have computers, didn't have Wi-Fi. So in this Freedom Rider community, we raised money to get her computers. And she literally, in the middle of this pandemic, was driving around and hand delivering computers and school supplies to these kids. So she wanted to know, Mr. Danza, she said, do you feel that it was harder to work with adults in the acting world or harder to work with students? So who's harder, the adults or the kids?
I'm not one for generalizations, but because I'd hate to paint everybody with a broad brush. But acting is a very self-aware thing. It's a self-involved thing. Whereas teacher, you have to be very unself-involved. I think you have to be more involved with them than not. So I don't know. I mean, I've had wonderful experiences. I've gotten to work with some of the great, I worked with George C. Scott, and I knew Gregory Peck, and I have been around some of the best, and I've worked with Judith Light and Danny and Judd and my wonderful Catherine Hellman, who I miss so dearly, and Alyssa Milano, and so I've been lucky in that respect. But there's a lot of jerks too. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. And the difference is that with kids, like the one kid that really drove me crazy. One of the kids who really drove me crazy. What drove me the most crazy was a kid named Algernon, and yet at the end of the year, he proved to me that no matter what, even though it seemed like I didn't make a dent in this kid, no matter how hard I tried, at the end, he proved to me, he said something to me that proved to me that I did. And so, I don't know, that reward, I think that reward, I mean, I haven't won an Emmy, so I don't know what that would be like. But that reward was pretty much as good as it could get, I thought.
I want to share a really sweet story, and it has a question attached to it, because I know that you spent a lot of time in all the boroughs of New York, but this wonderful man was born in Spanish Harlem to two severely drug-addicted parents who were heroin addicts. And he found himself homeless and on the streets. And today, he has 3 degrees. He's a doctor,
Wow.
and he's a professor. And we have...
Gives you hope.
I know, it's amazing. And just last week, we had our Freedom Rider virtual prom. And he was our prom king. Unanimously elected. And it was sad because he didn't get to attend a real prom. So it was like a do-over. We have a gold crown for him and everything. We have nicknamed him in Freedom Rider world. His name is Tom, Dr. Thomas Reifer, but we have nicknamed him Tom Pac because he knows every single lyric to every single Tupac song there is. And so I know that you have a relationship, or had a relationship with Tupac. And so can you just tell my sweet Dr. Tom Pac about your unique relationship with Tupac?
This was just one of those things where, the reason I tried to be a teacher was because, first of all, I'd gone to school and not fulfilled that. And I'd always held this romantic image of being a teacher, of changing lives, and I was also concerned about the conventional wisdom about nothing good happening in the public schools, and I wanted to see for myself. But I was always concerned about this. I mean, I've been concerned about kids. I saw an interview online the other day. Somebody sent me an interview online the other day from 1981. I'm standing in front of Pink's on La Cienega Boulevard with Huell Hauser. You remember him?
Yes,
Huell Hauser.
yes.
He's not around any longer. God rest his soul. But he's interviewing me about a movie I was doing. I don't know, some project I was in. And I was eating a hot dog, and I said, I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about, I've been working with kids. I said, kids, and I go into this whole long thing about kids. And I don't even know where it comes from, Aaron, but I don't know. I was concerned even back then about it. So one day, I was watching, getting back to Tupac, one day I was watching one of the those television entertainment shows, and they had him on. He was on, but it was for him from jail. He was in jail. Evidently, they had him and his crew had assaulted a makeup artist, something like that, and somehow he had ended up in jail. And by the way, at the time, he had also been shot 5 times. So he's got 5 bullet holes in him, and he's in jail. And he was showing on the show, he was showing his stomach where it said "Thug Life." So I was sitting there watching it, and I said, I just don't understand why, why we're even interested in this kid. What was interesting? And the next day, I was in my car, and this is when you change the channel in your car, for the radio. And I changed the channel, and up popped up "Dear Mama," his song about what he put his mother through. And I listened to the song, and then I went home and I got it, and I got the song, and I listened to the lyrics, and it touched me. And it didn't make any sense. It was not, the juxtaposition was bizarre. Here's a guy with 5 bullet holes in jail for assault, and he wrote this wonderful song about his mother. And if you know any of his work, he's a really terrific actor. Really terrific actor. Mm-hmm. So I'm a note writer. I write notes to people. I sit down, take out the Tony Danza, stationery, Hey, dear. And then I'll never forget, I was trying to, what do I write? Dear Dear Puck, Dear Tupac? I don't know what to write. So I write Dear Tupac, and I write this note. And basically what I say to him is, I know that you can't be, in your business, you can't be a goody two-shoes, but there are a lot of kids out there who are really, really influenced by you. And there's a picture of you with 5 bullet holes, thug's life, assault. Maybe since this is where you ended up, maybe there's another way to do this. And also at the same time realize, take care of those kids that are watching you. Because with great influence comes at least some responsibility. So I put the stamp on and I sent it off. About a week and a half. It wasn't that long. It wasn't long. I get a letter back from Tupac Shakur. What? So I open it up. And basically the letter is, thanks for writing me, and I'm glad you understand how I feel. And I'm like, no. So I get it off the stationery again, and I write another letter. I said, no, what I'm trying to say is, and I re-explain, is what I think he has some responsibility to his audience, because his audience are kids. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to see more kids in your situation. Simple. Now he writes me back, and he totally says, I get it. I don't know how I can do it. I ended up here this way. He explained his youth to me. He talked about, how, what he's been through. And by the way, sometimes I complain about some of the music that's out there, some of the music videos. I'll read the New York Times, and they'll have a half page on Lil Baby or Young Boy Never Broke Again. These are the names of these rap artists. And I go online and I want to see, the New York Times will say a wordsmith, and he's digging deep into some emotion. And I go on and look at the lyrics, and oh man, I don't know. That's not, it's not exactly Sammy Kahn. You know what I mean? So I complain about that a little bit. But then again, you got to realize that these guys are writing what they know. This is what they know. You know what I mean? It's not what you know or what you want them to know. This is what they grew up with. This is what they know. And so I had to learn that. And he taught me that. And so we wrote each other for a couple more times. And one night I was at a movie premiere. And I was with my family. I had my little girls, my 2 little girls and my wife. And all of a sudden, it looked like the light went out. And I got dark. And I looked, and it was because there was this huge bodyguard who was blocking out the light. And he said, Tupac wants to see you. And Tupac was at the movie premiere. So I walked over and said hello. And we just talked for a couple of minutes. And he thanked me for writing him. And he thanked me for writing him, and I said, and he said, we talked about kids who we talked about a little bit, and it was brief, and I went back to my kids, and he said, what were you doing? And I said, it's my friend Tupac Shakur. They were like, what? So anyway, then months went by, and my son brought Triple X, I think it's called Triple X magazine. It's a black magazine at the time. My son said, hey, Dad, you're the only white guy in this magazine. So he showed me that, so I felt pretty good about that. But then Tupac did a movie called Resurrection. It was about his life. And in the middle of the movie, he stops and goes on and on about me. In the movie. He said, I don't mess with my man Tony Danza. So that's really the extent of it. But it just goes to show you that, you feel like reaching out to somebody, it's possible, and if you make sense, they might respond. So I don't know. I just took a shot. I'm certainly glad I did that. That's for sure. I wish you could find the letters, by the way.
Well, Tony, I know I speak for all of my guests that we could be here forever. And I feel like this is just the beginning of several more conversations. And so I want to say to you that I am so honored that your editor reached out to me to read your book. I am so honored that you continue to teach on different stages and in different places. And the loyalty you have to your people, whether they're Vikings in Philly or those PAL kids, or to us. You never say no. So I want to thank you for rallying in the middle of a pandemic, for being the light for us, for cute little Cappy in Kentucky to say, I got 12 weeks until I get to come face to face with my schoolgirl crush. You were the light for all of us to ascribe to. So is there a last word of wisdom?
Well, here, first of all, I want to just thank you for everything you do. And, you're an inspiration and a model. You really are. And so and as teachers know, you got to model it. Don't make me bring up Venn diagram. but words of wisdom. I don't know. I think you got to be hopeful and hang in there. And if you're a teacher, you have to remember that there are going to be days when you want to jump out the window. But there are other days when a kid's going to say something to you that's going to make you feel like, wow, I did something today. I made a difference. And a small difference, maybe small in some ways, but there's that famous story. It's in the book. So the end of my school year, I'm leaving, and I was in a hurry to catch a train to New York from Philadelphia. It was the last train, or what, I don't remember, whatever it was. And one of the teachers, another English teacher, Lynn, I'm trying to remember her name. My brain, by the way. I'm of a certain age now, Aaron. But anyway, she handed me a box. She said, I have a present for you. And I said, oh, Lynn, thank you so much. But I thanked her for it. I didn't have time to look at it. I stuffed it in my bag and I got on the train. And I got on the train and I remembered I had the box, so I opened the box. And it's a plaque, a little plaque. And on the plaque is a story. And the story is that a big storm happens and it roils the ocean. And thousands of starfish are washed onto the beach. The clouds break and the sun starts to bake the starfish. Two guys come walking along. They see all the starfish. And one guy goes crazy and starts throwing starfish one by one into the ocean. But there's thousands. And his friend is watching him do it. He says to him, what are you doing? You're not going to make any difference. And the guy takes a starfish and he throws it into the water and he says, made a difference to that one. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it. That's it. Just try to make a difference to that one.
You do. And you did. And I can't wait to just send this present to all these teachers. I say this, I love books. And I want to quote the other Mr. Danza. Your dad talked a lot about buying in. You got to buy in. And I think when you and I met, we always very lovingly talk about our dads, because I know that my dad would have loved this book. But thank you.
My dad would have loved you.
Oh, it's the greatest compliment I think I ever got. But I think that you bought in. And in this trying time, we just need people to buy in.
That's right. And my father's saying was, if everybody doesn't buy in, nobody buys in. So yeah, buy in.
So buy in, and let's each and every one of us pick up a metaphorical starfish, and let's make a difference to that one.
That's right.
Tony, you made a difference to so many starfish today, so I thank you.
Thank you for
honor
having
you that.
Me, Erin. Thank you for having me. Keep up the good work. And by the way, I'm looking at Hillary behind you there, and it's amazing. So congratulations on everything, really, and keep up the good work. And here's the extra 10 for reviewing my book. That's great. I'm going to send you a little money for that.
Well, I'll send you the information about that play. I want you to watch those beautiful kids tomorrow night.
And I'm going to send you the video.
And I'll send them out to the world. So to everybody that's watching, you could see why we were so excited to end this Freedom Forum with Tony Danza. Doesn't get any better. I'm going to end with a little "Hold Me Closer," Tony Danza. Thank you all. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.